Welcome to the January edition of North St. Paul Notes. I'm your host, Paul Anderson. Coming up in the next half hour, our theme is North St. Paul on the Move. I'll be joined by our Mayor, Mike Keene, and Fire Chief, Scott Dudek. Learn about the upcoming economic development in North St. Paul, an update on building permits, and what it means for potential development. Stay tuned. North St. Paul Notes is straight ahead. Hello and welcome to the January edition of North St. Paul Notes. We hope this show will keep you up to date on the news and events that are of interest to the residents of North St. Paul. This month's theme is North St. Paul on the Move. My guests are Mayor Mike Keene and Fire Chief Scott Dudek. Welcome, gentlemen.
Glad to be here.
Hi. Good to have both of you back, but it's really unusual having both of you together. This feels very odd for me, but maybe for you too.
It does, but we have a lot to talk about.
Well,
a lot of excitement.
I have no doubt about you're having a lot to talk about. I know the theme that we're talking about, North St. Paul on the Move, doesn't mean that North St. Paul is going to move, so I want to set that straight first.
Right.
We're staying right where we're at.
Yeah, right. It's been a long time, and I think we're satisfied where we are. So.
Yes.
But I wanted to start off with the mayor, Mayor Keene, if you would talk a little bit about the budgeting program or budgeting process that is in play now. I think you have just completed that. Is that correct?
Yeah, Paul, we just in December adopted the city budget for 2018. And it's pretty much a flat budget. Basically, there was an increase, but with a lot of work. The people who got their tax statements that showed in, I think it was November, what they'd be paying in their city portion of taxes. Actually, the council and working hard with the department heads in the city and our acting city manager were able to reduce that by about a third. And so we're very pleased with that. But there still is generally a tax increase in the city, but largely due simply to the fact of inflation. Costs going up, be able to afford the pay the salaries of our staff, et cetera, cost of insurance, those types of things, and also the fact that every year now we've been doing street improvement projects, and to pay for those we have to sell bonds, which creates a debt. So a lot of that increase that people have seen this year in their taxes is associated with paying the interest in the. It's like paying a mortgage. It's like paying those payments for the money we borrowed for the street improvements. Okay. And we think that's something that our residents have desire. They want our streets to be kept up, and we have a long ways to go, but we continue every year to work on street projects, which is very important.
Sure. And I'm sure that most people understand the need for that, and that will drive up some tax as a result. So.
Exactly, and we hope to continue to do that. So there'll be probably some small tax increases in the next several years. But at some point, as we add debt, the older debt for some of the projects of a number of years ago will start retiring. So it should balance out in hopefully in a few years, where the debt service levy won't be increased every year because old debt will be retired as well. So hopefully it'll kind of even out then.
Right. Okay. Scott, I also had a question for you regarding the. Well, first of all, your official title is Fire Chief.
Right.
However, there seems to be so much more involved in that.
Yeah, I always seem
a man of many hats.
get involved in a lot of things and enjoy doing it. And, when I started with the city, it was on the fire department on a volunteer basis, but then started full-time with the city as a public works superintendent, and
Right.
so I've had a lot of different roles over the years: public works, community services, community development, fire chief, a lot of different roles. So really enjoy doing it, and a lot of excitement going on right now. As you know, you talked about the kind of the title of what we're talking about, North St. Paul on the Move, and we're really looking forward to that and trying to create the momentum and the excitement out there with doing that. In this upcoming year, the new year, January, we really took a look at building permits and things like that to be able to promote and encourage the either redevelopment, development, whether it be from a homeowner doing work in their own home, all the way up to a full-scale redevelopment project within the city. And so in doing that, we've looked at all the fees, and we've actually reduced, just in building permits alone, we've reduced our building permit fees significantly. And one of the real large areas to look at that developers look at, or even a small office, if they were going to add, let's say a bathroom or something to their facility. And these are water access fees that you'll hear them referred to as WAC and SAC fees, as they refer to them, but they're a water access fee or a sewer access fee. And the Metropolitan Council has a fee for that, for the sewer access fee, and that's in place for all cities. There's no workaround with that. But example, I think is $2,485 for each one of those.
That's for a permit.
For a permit fee.
When they pull a permit, then
that fee is charged.
Okay.
So say if there's, and it's counted on a number of different restrooms and floor drains and things like that that's in the building that's being added, and it's calculated based on what the demand will be on the system.
Sure.
Well, over the years, North St. Paul, we had those internal fees ourselves also for sewer and water access. And in conjunction with those three fees, it was nearly $10,000 per item for that permit fee. So to encourage that and bring that back down, we've gone from an internal fee of, say, $8,000 between those two, down to $150 each. So from $8,000 down to $300. And it's really just in the last 2 weeks in talking about it, and the council did adopt those fee schedules at one of our previous meetings here. That'll go into effect January 1st. And just in talking to some of our local businesses and or residents, hearing that, there's already a huge amount of excitement, and I'm really looking forward to the development and redevelopment that will hopefully occur with that.
If I could just add, these fees were, Scott and his department started in code enforcement started to look at these fees and compare them to other cities, and they were extremely high. And we had actually heard from some members of the development community that fees are so high in North St. Paul, especially if you're building an apartment building or something, because these fees are individual unit fees. So it could add to hundreds of thousands of dollars to the cost of development. And as we looked at this, I mean, we're trying to be very pro-development. We need to kind of rebuild the town in some areas. We need to expand our tax base with economic development. So to lower these fees, we hope the word will now get out there to the development community that we're open for business, and we have dramatically reduced these fees to make it more attractive for a developer.
Okay.
And we don't want to promote this as a bad thing that we had in the past, but we're really promoting this as a good thing moving forward, and really encouraging people to do their work and to take out those permits. Even on a residential side, to encourage those permits to be taken, because in the long run, when it comes time to sell the home or for insurance needs and things like that, it's something that's looked back upon that the work was done and it was done correctly.
Sure. So. Will the lower amount that you get from the fees be offset by the greater number of applications, do you think?
Well, I think that'll be in place, but as far as an effect on the budget, in past years we've been budgeting really conservatively on the amount of revenue that would be received from permit fees. So we haven't changed that last year or this year. So even though we were able to reduce those fees significantly, it's not going to have a direct effect on the budget.
Okay.
So we were able to do that.
And the numbers of particularly new homes, unfortunately, small as we are and fully developed, it's hard. We don't get a lot of new home construction. And larger developments we always have, even though those fees were at that higher number, we've always had it, which became very tedious and a lot of work, negotiate that. Like when the Polar Ridge development was built, that was all negotiated. There was 140 some units in that development, and we had to negotiate that because the cost would have been, way too prohibitive to make that project work. So this way, I think it's a fair thing. Everybody pays it. It's a flat fee, and we don't have to go through that with the developer, and they can just calculate that into their costs when they're figuring out whether they can make the development pay for itself or not.
Sure.
So everything from building permits on these higher scale ends, or whether it be new development, redevelopment, or homeowners, all the way down to pet licenses, animal licenses, even our dog licenses, cat licenses, and things like that. We looked at that even from the small scale, and have made adjustments with that also. So what has historically been in place is a 1-year license. We've now gone to a 2-year license, kept the rates where they were, but also added additional discounts and increased the discount size for early renewal. So now those pet licenses will be in place for 2 years.
Okay.
So across the board, really looked at all the fees where we could to make them competitive with our surroundings.
And we really want people to license their pets. It's for their own safety and security, and also for other people. It makes their pets lost. It can be found if they're by being licensed. If the pet happens to unfortunately bite someone, there's a record, that a history, because they do have to get the license. They have to prove that the pet has had certain shots, rabies, etc.
Right.
So the cost isn't the big issue. We don't really make money off it, but we want to encourage more people to license their pets, because there's a lot of good things that come with that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
You had mentioned before the water access fee,
Right.
Scott, and can you explain a little more about that? That's the Met Council.
Well, the Metropolitan Council has a sewer access fee.
That's the sewer access.
Yeah, sewer
okay.
access fee. And then on the local level, those same fees were put in place for the sewer access and water access fees. And what that's designed to do is be put into a fund to help for infrastructure replacement or rebuilding and utilization of the system. As the mayor talked about earlier, we're doing these street projects and everything that we've been doing every year, every other year to some form. And just the infrastructure within North St. Paul is obviously aging with the community, and something that we've got to stay up on. But it also, we have to be conscious of that we don't get that too far out of touch with development, so that we don't encourage that development happening. But that's what the money is designed for, to go back into the system, to replace and enhance the system, to be able to handle the additional load that's being put on the system.
Right. I'm sure a lot of the homeowners don't understand what all those things mean, and so it's helpful.
Well,
to
they don't,
have
and
those
then
things
again
explained.
with the high fees. I mean, years ago, it has never been high till about 4 years ago. The whack and sack that the city was charging. So I mean, going back, and historically, it hasn't raised a lot of money because we don't have a lot of new development. So that fund really isn't growing. So most of the cost of putting in, for example, new water and sewer lines, as I said, we bond for that project. But in the water and sewer areas, the water and sewer fees residents pay on their monthly utility bill is built into that cost, is the amount that we have to use to pay the amount of debt that was incurred for the water and sewer portions of a street project.
Okay.
And so, it just wasn't, there wasn't really money being raised by this whack and sack charge to any significance anymore
so
anyway. So.
Wouldn't have that great an effect.
No,
then.
exactly.
It was causing a more negative effect on the development
On
side
development.
than a benefit for the system.
Sure.
Right.
Okay. And you've had some feedback from developers? And,
We've had significant feedback already, just in passing and talking about it. So really thinking that this is going to have a significant impact on the larger scale developments that we're pursuing right now.
Sure. Do you anticipate that the street projects program will continue as it has been, or any changes?
I do as a council. I mean, that'll be a council decision, but right now, I mean, I think just talking to residents, they like the idea of not letting streets completely fall apart.
Right.
We've also tried to step up our street maintenance schedule. We did a lot of patching this year, and we've also look at streets that don't need new sewer and water. which means they don't have to all be dug up, that has a fairly good base. And then we're doing every other year mill and overlay projects. This year we did it up by Southwood Nature Preserve, a big area up in that neighborhood. 11th Avenue was another one where we just did a mill and overlay on it. But the major projects, I think we will continue, but you know, it depends on how much this debt service will continue to grow. Right now we want to do a major project every other year, but sometime in the future the council will probably have to have a discussion. Can we continue to do that? What's the tax burden this is growing at? And maybe we'll continue, but maybe we'll have to go do a major project once every 3 years instead of every 2 or something like that. And that'll depend on some economic analysis.
Sure. Well, Mayor, you have been, how long have you been in office now?
I've just ended end of the 2017, my 27th year on the city council.
And as mayor?
When Mayor Sandberg passed away, that was I think 2008. So
Okay,
this will be the start of my 10th year.
10th year
mayor,
already.
yeah.
Time goes
flies when you're having fun, and I have enjoyed every
You
minute
have,
of it.
okay.
Yes,
All right.
it's a labor of love, and I
think
really
so.
love it.
Yeah. Well, from the start of your term as mayor, I've known that the development program, economic development, has been one of your favorite topics, and you did start the Economic Development Commission, which has been meeting ever since you became mayor.
Right.
And I guess you have some ideas on what is going to happen in the near future with some of the properties that are available for development?
How long is this show, Paul? Like a couple hours here?
That's what I was afraid of.
No, real quick, I mean, it doesn't take, I think, North St. Paul residents to realize, I mean, we don't have a big commercial industrial tax base. And like 84% of our property taxes that run the city come from residential properties. In most cities, it's more like 60%. Because they have, like, just look at Maplewood, for example, St. John's Hospital Complex, the Maplewood Mall, 3M.
Right.
I mean, you know, those are huge things that make a big difference on property taxes. We don't have that, but one of the things we need to do is take advantage of those opportunities as we kind of redevelop the town, because part of the town's aging, and we're seeing some land clearance like the old City Hall site, the old medical site, the old school bus garage site, the anchor block site. Take advantage of those sites to try to come up with development that's good development that will have significant property value, that will raise the amount of taxable property in the city, hence take less liability from the individual residential owners of homes in the city. So we're working hard on that, and yes, we created an Economic Development Commission. I think we have a great commission right now. It's chaired by Robert Dew, who owns the Kindle's Corner building and is a commercial builder of property. We have Tom Shifsky on it. We have Dave Sapansky just stepped off because Dave retired now. Wish him well. So he served for several years on it. We have Bill Fairbanks, who's a commercial real estate person. Terry Furlong and I serve on behalf of the City Council, and I'm forgetting one member, and we have one vacancy at this point. And so we really work hard, and for many years when it was created, when the time I became mayor is about the time the Great Recession hit, an economic downturn. And because
good timing.
Good timing. And we're in a great situation in our city for its location. But for economic development, particularly commercial, we have Maplewood Mall on one side, the development that continues to occur and grow out in the Stillwater area, and then the Woodbury, all of that, and we're kind of surrounded by it all. So it takes an extra effort, and I think we saw things happen quicker after the economy improved again in some of those other areas, but we're finally, now it's coming to us, and we see great opportunities, and we're, the parcel of land the city owns in what we call Commerce Park, where the old school bus garage is. The council just approved the negotiation and sale of that land to a developer who's going to put up a 32-unit care facility, assisted living. And people can say, well, you know, Polar Ridge is that. Well, this Polar Ridge is assisted living, which is basically meals and some light housekeeping, but the residents who are in assisted living, they live independently. This is a little bit different assisted living. It's kind of the step beyond that. But they built a facility in Vadnais Heights that we had a chance to tour, and it's a really quality development. It's about a $6 million one-level structure, and it will create about 30 new jobs in the city, mostly obviously in the healthcare field. And they also have an internship program with Century College for people who are being trained in nursing who can come in and get some on-the-job training types of things. And so we're really excited about that, and we're seeing a great deal of interest now in the downtown. You know, we have an acting city manager, Craig Waldron, who was the Oakdale city manager now for 21 years. Craig, before that, for 8.5 years, was the economic development director in Roseville. At the time, it was really seeing substantial growth. So he knows this really well, and he knows a lot of the players outside of our city limits. And he's really working hard with Scott and some other staff on looking at other opportunities in the city. But like us old timers say, and all three of us here, I guess, can say that, old timers as far as living in the community.
Right.
And the bottom line is, Craig too, he sees our downtown, he sees our community, and it's just charming, but it needs more types of things. So we're working on kind of changing over the lease agreement with the community center. It was a hockey school, and that kind of died off. Well, now there's a volleyball school that subleases in there. We have those types of things. So that's brings lots of people in. But one of the things they told us, like, where do my parents, when their kids are in volleyball practice, where do they get a cup of coffee? And that's, you know, but we think if we can increase housing in the Anchor Block site, the south part of that up the hill there, create housing opportunities in other areas near the downtown will grow. And I'm sure Scott has a lot to add, and that's a nutshell, but there's a lot of interest, and we're working hard. We're working across from City Hall. Those 2 dental offices have both been vacated now, one due to a switch of partnership, one due to a death, and we own the part in between. That's another site, because we're finding out developers become a lot more interested in the land if it's cleared, if it's available. They don't have to go out and try to negotiate it. So we're working on doing some of that. Scott's kind of spearheading that for our city manager. I'm sure you have a lot to add.
Well, and Mayor, you summed it up very well. I mean, those 3 sites, the across from City Hall, the old City Hall site in the downtown, and the Anchor Block site are currently have a lot of interest. We've had a lot of discussion with different developers on it right now, and you know, we kind of look back and say, well, we've done that over the years. But I really think, you know, and kind of go back to the theme of this show, North St. Paul on the Move, really optimistic that that's what the 2018 is going to show, is that we're going to have some of this development actually take place, and all that tied in with what we talked about earlier with the permit fees and those water access fees and things like that. All that brought together as one. I think it's really going to have the conduit to make some of these things happen.
And I think we have a really good, you know, leadership team. It turned out, you know, and I've always felt that it needs to be more than one person. Paul Emmerman's our community development director, but Scott is joined part of this team working on this, besides his hat with housing and the student-built housing and all these other programs that he's involved in, code enforcement, besides the fire department. But, and then Craig Waldron, our acting managers, involved with this development team, and then Deborah Gustafson, who works in our community development. I think she's the strategic plan manager. Sorry, Deborah, I don't remember your title, but she's part of this too. And because you need to assign this kind of stuff, and working as a team, you get this assignment. It means to support the team, you have to come back with that task done at a point certain in time, so you can kind of keep the things moving. But it's a lot of connections, and we're seeing those. I mean, our managers had several meetings with outside developers as well, because you know, we're not a wealthy community, and we don't have a lot of business people that can who are in the community now that can come up with kind of helping rebuild the town. But everybody can play a role in our town, but also some outside developers who again, hopefully will see the vision that our town is very unique and offers some really unique opportunities as a quaint place to set up shop. And we're seeing that as well in the manufacturing end. There's a couple manufacturers who are currently in town that are looking to expand. Scott's been working with them to come up with some potential site locations for that. to be maybe part of a bigger thing. And we're also trying to build partnerships, like maybe the City Hall site. Well, maybe it won't be just one developer, but maybe it'll be a builder and a developer and a couple landholders that are there, and you know, coming together to find a product that works for all of them.
Sure.
But as you can tell, I'm excited
You
about
are.
it.
I can tell. Well, I can understand why too,
Yeah.
because it's an opportunity that
Yes.
we
They don't come
haven't
around
had
every
before.
day, yeah.
That's right.
No.
We are running short on time, but in the some of the time that we have left, Scott, I wanted to ask you about public safety and
Sure.
your role in that and what you see coming with that.
Well, again, as we're coming to year near end, from the fire department standpoint, we've set another record for calls for the fire department, and the last few years has been breaking records year after year with call load increasing, and that's no different this year. We'll set another new record this year, exceeding 1,300 calls for the small community. And the police department is the same way. I was talking to Chief Loft this morning, and the police department for the first time ever also went over the 10,000 call mark. So for a small community, there's a lot of things going on within the community, a lot of positive things coming, and the fire department, from our standpoint, are very involved with one of our big programs that we're proud of and continuing to promote is our Safe Haven program, where we'll go out into the home, invited in by the homeowner, do a basic home safety inspection with the homeowner. We'll install carbon monoxide detectors, smoke detectors, and range hood fire stops as needed in the house at no cost, and we'll install them for them. The detectors are not detectors that you have to replace batteries in annually. These are a 10-year sealed detector. We've partnered with the Red Cross with this program, so they're helping us with the supply of the smoke detectors, and the fire department is providing the carbon monoxide detectors and the other equipment. And again, we're installing all that at no cost. So this time of year, it's always a popular thing to talk about, but it's a very important thing year-round. But again, if anyone's interested, they can either call us or go to the city's website and fill out a request form for that. But that's a program that we're really proud of.
Okay, great.
Scott, how many of you installed? How many?
Over 100 homes.
Great.
We've
Great
done
start.
that, just starting with that.
I'm on the list too.
Good.
So
Good. I
looking
encourage
forward to
everyone
having that done.
to do that, and
That's
we'll
a good-
eventually get to everyone.
You can't beat. It's a bargain.
No, exactly.
The other thing that the fire department we just did in conjunction with with our neighbors at Maplewood and others, we just did training on a fall program, trips and falls and things at home in homes, and so we're going to be adding that to our home safety program to be able to identify some of those things, and more, not only for everyone, but more so for elderly on ideas that we can give to help prevent those type of injury.
Okay. Well, that's a good report. I hope
Yeah.
many people will tune in and hear this information because I think it's very important.
Right.
Just one last, we have about a minute left.
All
so
right.
in that time, I was going to ask you about the search for a new city manager and
Sure.
whether you can say something
Sure.
about that.
Sure. Our previous manager, Jason Zemer, decided to resign and move on and pursue other opportunities. Just chatted with him the other day, and he has several applications. I think he's looking, particularly to get into a larger city, and it's kind of advanced, which is
Sure.
nature of city managers. But the council will have a retreat in February, and meanwhile we have some homework we're trying to come up with the culture of the city, the residents, the community itself, but City Hall, the council, which should help us find really the best fit. And then we're going to base a job description after the council has an all-day retreat in February, and then start that process. And our acting city manager, Craig Waldron, will assist us in that as well, and he's well connected in the community because he also has taught for many years public administration at Hamlin, and so that will help as well. So I think the council is going to move cautiously, slowly, and try to find what we feel is the best fit. And Craig has not put any pressure on us. He said he'll serve as acting manager as long as it takes for us to fill that position.
Sure, that gives you a break because
Right,
you don't
exactly.
you don't have to rush into
Exactly.
anything, and that helps a lot.
Hopefully,
so.
without rushing, we'll be able to really evaluate things.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, so I'm getting the signal.
The signal's here.
So I really appreciate you fellas being on, and we've been talking to Scott Dudek, a fire chief, and Mayor Mike Keene. regarding the city on the move. So thanks, gentlemen.
Our
you.
pleasure.
We're out of time on this month's show. Join us again next month when we'll bring you more news about North St. Paul. I'm Paul Anderson, speaking for everyone at the City of North St. Paul. Thank you for watching.